The Gordon Institute of Business Science and Graduate School of Business at UCT have opened a large gap between themselves and competitors, and that's according to the latest Financial Mail MBA survey. Well, we're here to talk about MBAs with the man who put the survey together, David Furlonger from the Financial Mail, and Nicola Klein from Gibbs, who clearly rated very highly. We haven't got MBAs yet, you and I, Gugu.
It's not at all.
I'm past it. You still got lots of opportunity to get there one day.
I might just take it by the horns and maybe do a PhD after that. Why not?
Well, let's find out today whether it's worth doing. And David, you can give us some insights. Why does the Financial Mail do a survey like this?
Well, originally we were approached actually by Wits Business School and Cape Town's GSB. There had been various attempts to do these before, but remarkably the schools which finished top of the rankings tended to be those which had put the most advertising in. So we were asked to do an independent rating, which we've been doing ever since. And it's in our readers' interests as well, because clearly we're in the business environment and a lot of our readers either have MBAs or are planning them. So it's a great thing for us, and usually it's our biggest selling magazine of the year.
Wow. Just with regard to the research that you do there, just in a nutshell, what exactly have you found over the years as you cover these stories?
Well, what we have found is that there is more realism amongst people going into MBAs. A few years ago, everyone assumed that if you went into an MBA, it was your passport to promotion and riches. What we found very, very quickly with our research was that that wasn't the case, that if you went in with those ideas in mind, you were very disappointed. So what we found over the years is that those who are going in now have far more realistic expectations of what they can get. Now they're looking still, yes, for career progress, but they're looking really for general management education and the tools to progress. They realize now it's not an end in itself. It is simply giving them the tools to succeed.
So where does the problem come in? Is it with the qualification criteria or the skills that they learn within studying an MBA, or is it just the overall experience? Because obviously to become an executive in a company, you need to have a little bit more than just a paper to hold on to.
Well, when you say the problem, you mean in terms of career and earnings?
In terms of the MBA not being entirely suited to the students' well, previously not unrealistic expectations with regard to, I get an MBA and I become an executive, pay increase, and the title's mine. Where does the problem lie in there? Where's the shortfall? Is it the
There's a
skills
couple
or
of problems.
theory?
Internationally, if one looks at the recession of the last few years, there have been far fewer openings for people coming out of business schools. Again, people go in, they expect to come out and catch a job, but when there's a recession, there's no job to go into. So they become entrepreneurs, they try and set up their own businesses. Here you've had the problem over the years that there is a huge difference in the quality of MBAs. So one of the things which our survey shows is that there's a lot of businesses who haven't heard of a number of schools. So if you come out of some of those schools and you say, I've got an MBA, and the company will say, which school is it from? And you'll tell them and they say, never heard of them.
But if you tell them it's Gibbs, Nicola.
Well, you know, you guys are looking at doing MBAs, and our applications office is open until the 15th of November, so we're looking forward to seeing you on campus.
How many of the MBA students get divorced?
You know, this is a fallacy. I met my husband on my MBA, so I'm really anti this notion of it being the divorce degree.
But you weren't married first when you met him.
I wasn't married first. You know, we have far more children born on MBAs actually than divorces, which is interesting, because as we have more female participants on the degrees, and they're typically women who have learned to multitask really well.
Oh my.
It's a question of time management.
But just tell us, how did Gibbs do so well in such a short period of time? What have you done differently?
We've worked very hard to build strong relationships with business, and that helps us in two ways. I think in one way in terms of being known by business. So we have a significant part of the school also focuses on corporate education, which is open programs and customized programs. So from that perspective, we're known by business. The other thing that we've done to really differentiate the MBA is to make sure that we're aligned to what business needs. There's an enormous crossover of professionals coming into Gibbs who are then interacting with our students. And so I suppose it's part of our geographic location being close to business, but also, you know, a strong area of focus.
David mentioned earlier that there's some significant differences with regard to MBAs in the country, and that also depends on the institution that you go into. How has Gibbs managed to differentiate itself to become one of the top MBA institutions in the country?
I think you've got to look at the role that accreditation plays. So we have two types of accreditation that are on everybody's minds at the moment. The one is local South African accreditation, and there was a major clean out with the Council for Higher Education some years ago. It's absolutely critical that a student wanting to register for an MBA make sure that their school is accredited with the Council of Higher Education. Increasingly, though, we're finding students are also looking at international accreditations, and there are three main bodies there. So different schools are accredited with different bodies, but I think that's also a signal of quality. It's also an issue of who they meet. And we're lucky now that it's taken a while, but we're starting to get alumni. We're hosting the alumni of who started in 2001. So the school started in 2000. So it becomes its own, it builds its own momentum as you have more and more alumni in the business school. But I think that this issue of accreditation and of a quality degree, the other thing that I think is important is that students have good face time. What happens in that classroom, and they need to, it's caveat emptor. They need to be really careful that they're not signing up, as David has said, this notion that I have the piece of paper and that's my ticket to success. It's what you did to get that piece of paper that's going to be your ticket to success.
David, have you done any calculations on return on investment? I presume Gibbs is more expensive than Henley or Pot or KZN. Would that give you the earning, is your benefit reflective of what you pay for the tuition?
We have done some research on that, and it's interesting that you put Gibbs up against Henley, because actually there's not a lot of difference there. Henley, of course, is an international school with a local office here, or a local school here as well. It's got international accreditation, so it is expensive. It looks slightly at UK rates, but it's close to Gibbs. One must also look at what you get for that money. With Gibbs, for example, and some of the other schools, the price you're paying includes the overseas study trip, all sorts of extras, the books. Some of the other schools you're finding you've got to add on another 40,000-50,000 to what you think you're paying.
So what would it cost you, a good MBA in South Africa?
A good MBA. Whew. If one looks at the internationally accredited schools, then you're looking at, whether it's a part-time MBA or a full-time MBA, your basic cost you're looking at 140,000, 150,000 upwards. And if you're with those good schools, you do tend to get a good return on your investment. We've done informal, not full-time or full-out research on this, and we've compared the schools and what the graduates from those schools get. And you do tend to find that if you're at a school where you're paying 190,000, it's difficult to get back that investment. But if you're at a school where you've only paid 30,000, which is around the cheapest, actually no, it's a bit more than that, it's just over 40,000 now, it's not that hard to get the investment back. So percentages are very difficult to compare.
Gugu, we were talking earlier about that front page, or the focus of this article on glass ceilings, or the impact of women.
Yes, it does seem as though, Nicola, you might be able to provide slightly more insights on this, but it seems as though the glass ceiling for women who qualify and enter to complete the MBA studies, and not only that, but moving into the business world after getting the qualification, that glass ceiling is not broken, but there are slight cracks coming through at the moment.
I think that we certainly see that there are less women graduating. The quality of our female graduates, I did a little calculation the other day on looking at the average marks that women get versus the average marks that our male graduates get, and women are higher. I didn't test it for significance,
like at school,
but they're scoring better. Not much changes.
They ask
not much
easier
changes. I think back. I did my MBA in 1991, and we still had women there. I certainly wasn't aware of that ceiling, as you put it. It's certainly nothing when we do surveys with our female and male students and we start asking about these kind of barriers. We're not finding that students are feeling that and seeing it. So I think we do see it, but we've got to actually look at the stream before in terms of who's educated with what degrees, because that creates our entrance pool. So when we start seeing that the entrance pool of suitably qualified females is actually lower than suitably qualified males, one is going to see it, but the situation is normalizing.
It also seems as though it's a vicious cycle there, David, as well, because we have less and less females, as you say, adequately qualified with undergrad degrees, moving into MBAs, and then in the business sphere as well, there's not much space for a lot of females out there as well.
Look, there is a very low percentage of women in South African boardrooms. So one could argue that why would you go through the pain of an MBA and the divorce of an MBA if you don't believe that there is scope for you out in the business world? Whereas I do think that schools are creating women who now believe that there are opportunities out there, who are prepared to fight harder, but that wall, that ceiling is still there.
Nice cover story. It really was.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insights. So that was Nicola Klein from Gibbs, as well as David Furlonger from the Financial Mail. Now,